Future Growth and Vision Network. Today is a very, very important presentation I'm making, and it's something that's I wish I would have done earlier, to be perfectly honest and frank with you. Why? Because it is how to prepare for a disaster. And with everything that's happening in Los Angeles right now, in the fires and natural disasters all over the country, whether it is blizzards, or I live in Tornado Alley, so tornadoes and hurricanes and all the possible weather phenomena, weather events. This is a great opportunity for me to be able to give you 10 tips to get you ready for that event, help you create a checklist that says this will help you keep your family safe by knowing what you need to know in order to prepare for a disaster. So hopefully I will type all these 10 things up, put them in the comments when I'm done, and then you can go back and watch and hear the nuances of each one. Let's start with number one. Number one, you have to know what disaster is possible in the area that you live. If you're not sure, the best way to find that out is to ask. Well, because for some of you, you maybe have moved into a new area. If you recently have moved into the Midwest or the Southeast, or actually most states, but truly those areas, you need to ask about tornadoes. If you're on a coastal area, maybe there's hurricanes, you need to ask people about hurricanes. Or maybe you live in a earthquake-prone zone, some of them massive, like on the coast and certain fault lines, but also could be mild earthquakes. In the Midwest, we have earthquakes that run about 3 on the Richter scale, so they can rattle things but not get completely crazy. So it's good to know what disaster is possible in your area. Do you have ice storms? Could you be without power for 10 days? So knowing what you need and the kinds of disasters is the number one thing. The second thing is you need to know the insurance policy you have on your house or your apartment or your car or your property or your business. And not only know that policy, you need to know what it says. Because sometimes in those policies it says that natural disasters or acts of God are not included. So you need to make sure that it's included. Fire is a big one. They cancel those fire insurance policies a month prior to the fire hitting, and people maybe hadn't gone back and checked their disaster insurance. So make sure that you're checking your insurance policies. Make sure that you have an insurance carrier that will actually do that for you and know what it is that you need. So make sure also you know where the office is, what you need to do afterwards, which we'll talk about that. After a disaster occurs, I'll tell you what documents you need. Make sure that you have that prepared and some of the other things that are coming up. The third thing that I want you to do, and this is huge, I want you to take photographs and video of absolutely everything that you own. Take photographs and video of everything that you own. And that sounds crazy. Like if it takes an hour of you doing video footage, not only that, make sure that you post that in multiple places, whether it is in your documents on a computer, but also other ways that you can reach it. If the power goes out, if you lose everything in your home, you are not going to remember everything that's in it. You're not going to remember the things that you have in the rooms. You're not going to remember the things you have on the walls. And when insurance comes back and says, I need you to make a list of everything you have in your house, you may not remember that you had that priceless piece of art sitting in your living room until you go back and look at the video or look at the photographs. So make sure that you take photographs and you take video of everything that you own. Again, it sounds crazy, but it really isn't. Trust me when I tell you, when things happen, you need to know what is happening. Number 4, make sure that you have a plan on where to go if you need to leave your premises. In our case, if people leave their homes and they go somewhere else, you need to have a plan in place. If there's a fire and you need to leave your home, where are you going to meet? If your structure's not tornado safe. If you live in a mobile home or you live in one that's not structurally sound, then you need to find a place that you're going to go and create a plan that says this is where we will go in the event of this situation. Not only is it important for you to know that plan, but also for your loved ones to know that plan and for your kids to learn that plan. Why? Because if your children learn the plan, then they are less scared when an event occurs versus it being a last minute, you having to move them. Practice that plan. Whether it is, again, if it is a fire, where do they go? If it is a tornado, where do they go? If it is a hurricane, are you preparing days in advance? Are you going to evacuate to someone else's home? Are you going to move inland? Are you going to stay where you're at and board everything up? All of those things are important. Making sure that you have enough water, enough food, and inside your residence, if need be. This makes me think particularly of ice storms. We had a couple of ice storms in Oklahoma where we lost power for over a week. So you have to have enough water and food and all of that and make sure that you can get to the next place that you're at. But do you have a generator? Do you need a generator? Maybe you have medication. Do you have backup medication if your pharmacy is not open? If your pharmacy is not open, do you have medication for you? Do you have medication for your children? Do you have medication for your parents? Do you have medication for your pets? I said, do you have a plan for your pets if there's a disaster? These are all things that we need to think about because a shelter may or may not take pets. So then what happens? If your dog or your horse or your hoofed animals or your farm or whatever can't go with you, what needs to happen? And we'll talk about that in a second. But create that evacuation plan or your stay in place plan. So I live in Tornado Alley. The way that Tornado Alley works is this. You go to the center, lower level portion of your house with as many walls between you and the outside of your house, and you cover your head and you get down and you have ways to get information. Let me be clear about information. I trust my meteorologists that have been to school. I trust my meteorologists that have chief meteorologists around them from reputable sources. I do not trust YouTube meteorologists unless they have a meteorology degree from a school that specializes in meteorology. I trust the people that I've watched for a long time because I live in Tornado Alley. They are well versed in what they're doing. I trust people based on their specialty area, whether it is Aaron Tuttle because he's a radar meteorologist, or I look at someone else, or look at all of my plethora of people on Channel 5, Channel 9, Channel 4. I mean, I've got incredible meteorologists. I love all of, not only the head meteorologists, but their support teams are incredible because they are incredible what they do. Know your weather person, know their credentials, know whether they're worth listening to. Do not let someone get you in trouble because they don't know what they're doing. So make sure you trust your weather sources. Now, we've done this. We've taken our information. We know our insurance policy. We've created a plan. We've practiced our plan. Everything is going according to plan. No pun intended. Number 4. Then the event occurs, right? So this is the tornado. This is the earthquake. This is the ice storm. It is happening at that moment. You're going through it with your plan. After the event has occurred, number 5 happens. Number 5, I want you to assess the damage. I want you to assess your security first. Make sure that you're safe. I want you to make sure that your family is safe. I want you to look at your area. Make sure that you have shoes on your feet. Because if your house is no longer with you or has fallen in, you'll have nails all over. So you need to make sure you have shoes on your feet. You need to make sure that you have information. Do you have a cell phone that's fully charged? Do you have a backup battery? Let's say we have found, whether it's the more tornadoes or all other tornadoes in our area, once an event occurs, your phones get overwhelmed because the system, everybody is inundating you. If you don't believe it, ask people in LA right now trying to get all that information. They're getting people coming in and asking. Everybody's trying to find out what's going on, find out who's there. And those are systems that the cities need to set up, and we can talk about that at a different time. This is for you, your personal plan. But make sure you can assess the damage, your safety, your security, and find the local experts. Who are the people that are going to help get you out? Who are the resources you need for the city or the state or the countryside that you're in? Who are the people that you need to get to you? If you're in Tornado Alley, a lot of times most cities have you register. So let me explain. In our garages, they have tornado shelters. They're underneath the floor. So if a house falls down on top of that garage, you need to know that you are there. So what they'll do is they'll have you register your tornado shelter with the city so they know the location. So that if for some reason they need to come find you and your house is gone, they can put in those coordinates and come and find you. It is, again, it's a well-oiled machine the way they do that. So they make sure that that occurs. Same thing, you want to make sure that you can be found. You want to make sure that someone can come and check on you. You want to check on your family. You want to make sure that everybody's in a group chat so that you can make them know that you are safe and okay. Number 6, I want you to check on your community. That is your neighbors. That is the people in your neighborhood. February 27th, we had a tornado. I think it's February 27th. Or 26th. It might have been 26th. It was about 3 years ago. And it ripped up my neighborhood. We were as prepared as you could be in February. February is not a normal month to have tornadoes, but we had one that ripped through our area, and it did extensive damage. It took them a year at least to rebuild my neighborhood. And it was out of every movie you've ever seen, out of every newscast you've ever seen. There were cars flipped on houses. It was unbelievable. But it was something that taught me a lot, which is, I need to get prepared and be prepared. And I dealt with insurance adjusters afterwards and contractors and all the things that you need to do. So it's important for me to know that. But we checked on each other. When you walked outside of your house, you checked on your neighbors. You checked on people. Are you safe? Are you okay? Is there anything that you need? Are you safe? Are you okay? Is there anything that you need? And that was the question that kept coming up. Also, some people may not know what they need. Give them water. Give them food. Give them a listening ear. Listen to them talk. And let them just feel, because that's gonna take time over time, and it's important for us to prepare to let those communities have those feelings and listen and be empathetic and part of that, because that is a huge part of the overall ability to be okay after an event like that. Number 7, and this is actually one that should probably be earlier than this, but I put it on here at 7. Know your resources. That is, know your city resources. Know who's going to help you rebuild. Who's going to be the organizations you need to get to for replacing your roof. Maybe you have a new car that needs to get replaced. Maybe you have to get your kids to school. So what resources do you have? Do you have PTAs? Do you have chamber groups? Do you have other religious organizations or churches that you work with? What are the resources available to you, and what are their phone numbers? What are their addresses? Put them all in one spot. Make sure you have that, because again, a go bag is really important. Grab the go bag, put everything in there so you know where to go, what to do. Same thing if we're looking at places that have earthquakes. If that all falls in, can you get to it? Right? So those are also similar situations. The way that you handle earthquakes, I had to ask. I was in California. I didn't know. I knew what I had seen on TV, but I was like, is that real? So I had to ask my nephew if that was real and what to do in case of that. Tsunamis are not something I've ever experienced, but I'm like, again, I think those are things you have to prepare for. A hurricane I've never been in, but I've had friends who have, and the discussion around that, the time it takes to board up your windows. Where you're at, what about being upper floors? What happens if you have storm surge? What happens afterwards? How do you do disaster relief? Do you have, in our case, cave-ins? Cave-ins does restoration after there's been a flood or a disaster. That's one of the things that they do. So you'd have their information. Know your resources. Number 8, I want you to keep all of your documents, your very most important documents, together, especially during that season. If it's all the time, I don't know what to tell you other than just make sure it's in a go bag. But for us, we have a general best season. That is March, April, May is our tornado season. At that point, if I need to grab documents, I need to make sure I can put them in a bag quickly, get all of everything I need, and then make that happen. And that will be important. So let's go ahead and